Welcome to Ascension with V, where we talk about spiritual awakening, ascension, and everything in between. I'm your host, Stashia Jeanette, aka V, and today we have a special guest who's about to take us on a journey with their unique experiences and gifts. Dr. Val Rytova, please give us an introduction into you and all the things that you do and all the things.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Look, it's been a journey. I think I started when I was born,
Yes.
but
Yes.
that's how that went. I incarnated here, as we were just saying, as an 11-2 life path neurologically, so a master number. So I'm here to learn some master lessons, but also, to teach others along the way. That's part of my mission. I'm a behavioral neuroscientist professionally. I've got a PhD in that field. I've studied a lot of things around what it means to be a human being, like from an anatomy degree to anthropology to then brain science to immunology, cancer research. Like I've got a lot of degrees, right?
Right. The list.
Yeah, the list goes on, but all of them have to do, they're all connected in that I'm just fascinated and curious about the human being. I mean, I've even dedicated almost 10 years of my life studying ontology, right? The metaphysical philosophy of the study of being with a capital B. So I've got a big interest in investment in humanity. So that's what I think I'm here for. But what I'm doing now is I am bringing the science or the neuroscience out of the realm of academia and labs and neuroscientific conferences to the world, like to the public, to the world, to people, just so that it actually gets out there, because that's where it makes the biggest impact rather than in the lab.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so that's part of that's what I'm doing now, and I call myself a freelance neuroscientist because of it. Because I've left academia very recently, and I'm now pursuing this new mission on empowering people really to have clarity about their brain and and how they can impact it.
Insane. Literally. So like a two-part question here. I guess the first one is what called you to be like, I need to now move from out of the labs to the people?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I sensed that was limiting. I mean, in a nutshell, I sensed that was really limiting because I found like I was going from, conference to conference, seeing the same colleagues, like no matter where we were. We
Uh,
went to beautiful places, like there'd be a conference in Paris and then the conference in Montreal, but it's like the same people and we're talking about the same
right.
things, and it's like, what funding did you get this year? Oh, what did you discover? Oh, maybe I discovered it before you. Like it was like kindergarten, but on a neuroscientific PhD level in a sense. And I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is not what I actually want to
Yeah.
do. Like the reason why I pursued neuroscience is because I want to impact the world. It's not because I want to go and just like a little please talk
That.
amongst
Yeah.
ourselves about this
Yeah.
cool subject just because we learned that language and the rest of the world didn't. So
Right.
anyway, it became
Right.
lame and I became bored and I was like, I'm done with this. That's kind of it.
You were like, this isn't it.
No, exactly. Exactly. I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Whatever this is, I'm not doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's crazy because like we've just come from switching back into Aquarius, where we're now in this age of Aquarius thing, and it's this bigger picture of, right, like coming to the forefront of how can we, pioneer things for the highest good of humanity, and how can we do all the things and the coming together of the communities, and how can we best serve for the highest good of all type of things. So again, I mean, it sounds like it beautifully kind of tied into what's happening collectively right now, which again, I think is amazing. And also the fact that you listened to it and you were cognizant enough to recognize like, hey, this isn't it. I don't like this. This is clicky. This is not it. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting. My second
Thank
question on that is, how does the neuroscience back ascension and spiritual gifts such as telepathy, telekinesis, the clairs, lucid dreaming, and astral projection?
the neuroscience behind it. Look, I couldn't tell you exactly. It's something that I'm in the, I've now got a foot in the door because I'm now speaking to a lot of people who are experts in that field, or people that have had, those experiences, those capabilities. We all do to a certain extent. As I said, I'm an 11-2 life path, the psychic number, although I don't necessarily, um, you know, talk to a guide every 2 seconds of the day, but, I'm here kind of
Right.
talking to other people and, getting my downloads and whatnot. But I think that the two are interrelated. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in that field. I wouldn't call myself, spiritual neuroscientist or a neuroscience spiritualist, whichever. I think one is a reflection of the other, and what I'm making my life about is to create a evidence-based, like a
Yes.
neuroscience-based view, for the public about all these other things. Because there is, as a human being, whether you like it or not, we do live in 3D. We do, right?
Hmm.
There's a
We
computer
do.
in front of you, or like, here's my body, right? And
Right.
we do like evidence-based stuff, which is where the
Yes.
neuroscience comes in. And then there's
Right.
all these other things like telekinesis and telepathy and, the ability to do that, which haven't been disclosed on a scientific level or a neuroscience level per se, but it doesn't mean that that doesn't exist. And that's definitely part of my mission as well, how to show to the people, like, hey, when you're doing this, or when you're maybe experiencing a thought process or an epiphany, let's say, that is actually a neuronal pattern, that is neurons firing in your brain. Any experience, ultimately, you can not reduce down, but I would say on a neuroscience level, you do reduce it down to neuronal loop. It's literally a circuit in your brain that fires off like an electrical circuit. I like to
Yes.
explain it that way, when there's like an electrical circuit, literally electricity, right? Like a circuit.
Right. Right.
And that's how it is. That's how it is in the brain. So who you know yourself to be, like your name, let's say. When you're a baby, you're born, you don't really know you're a baby. You're like, but you don't even know what you are. You just kind of got
Right.
on this planet, right? You're like, you came from
Right.
elsewhere.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah. But then people start calling you like Val, let's say, and you're like, Val, Val, Val. And then
Yeah.
that's right,
One.
Val. And then
Yes.
after enough times, after enough repetition, the brain now registers Val as a neuronal circuit. And then all the attributes that become you over the years are now also these extra neural pathways and neural circuits. So it's not that there really is a Val there or there really is a Stashia there. It's a neuronal circuit firing off in your brain, and you really think that you're you. And
Right.
in the same way, telekinesis, let's say, people that have, studied that and that can do that have the neuronal circuits for that. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. You just haven't developed that neural pathway yet.
Right.
So that
Right.
was a really long, I guess, answer to your question, but everything in the metaphysical, even in the, I would say the ethereal, could
Ethereal.
could be connected on a neural level, on our human level, to our brain. And I'm not gonna lie, these are things that I'm not an expert in, and there's definitely things out there that I can't explain through the lens of neuroscience, that I'm just like beside myself. I'm like, well, riddle me that. I don't know. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know. So
Yes.
I'm happy to say that as well. There's things that are just beyond
Right.
my understanding or my capacity to even understand.
Right. And I appreciate that beyond anything, really, because there's so many people in general who are doctors and have all the PhDs, and they'll like just, even when they don't know, they'll just be like, let me just
Try.
whatever, you know, right. And again, there's a lot of things, as you said, that are just kind of, especially when you're dealing with the universe and matter and electrons and all the things, it's a lot of it's just
It's beyond, yeah, it's beyond the capacity of our human intellect. I would say it that way.
correct.
Even if, even if there is the connection, I think for us to first even grasp it on a human level and then try to relay it is beyond our current capacity.
Beyond. Beyond. And I say that frequently, like, I do these weekly. I'll do a channeled oracle read. I made an oracle deck, and I'll do like a channeled read from it. And a lot of times I tell people, I'm like, I struggle to explain what it is in like earthly human
Language.
terms. Yeah, I'm like, and so frequently you'll see me kind of like doing this, and I'll say like, what? And like, I'll see what I'm being given, and I'm like, I don't know how to explain this. Like,
Yeah.
what do I,
Yeah.
what is this? And it,
In the same way, no, you're mimicking what I'm saying, what I just said as well. I think we're very much on the same page with that one. Is there's just
yes,
things beyond this human bodysuit of what it can do with those things,
true.
really beyond our understanding, or even though you can feel it or envision it or even download it and channel it, it's like, whoa,
Right.
that intelligence is so beyond
What
what
am
this
right?
is capable of.
Yes, and then
Yeah.
even when I'm trying to like explain it again, now I'm trying to explain it in like consumable, what the masses of people could understand type of thing, which is also
Yeah.
like an added layer of, and I'm just
Well, look, I
like,
think,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't, yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm so there. Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I get the experience and, the how frustrating that may be as well. And that's where I think,
Right.
neuroscience is in a way a language as well. Because in a way, I'm doing what you're doing, but in a different
Yes,
area, right? Of expertise,
exactly.
like, because I'm
Exactly. But
making that knowledge and neuroscience available to the public in a way that is actually palpable. And that's what I'm attempting to do anyway. But just like yourself, there's
yes,
many things that I don't know and we don't know about the brain. I mean, gosh, there's
right.
billions of neurons in the brain. There's billions of circuits in the brain. There's just, I didn't create the brain, so I can't tell you everything about it.
Right.
It just so happens that I studied that language of neuroscience for a really long time,
Right.
and I know a little bit more than the average person, but that
Right.
I'm also aware of that, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you also mentioned something that it kind of dinged off on me, like, oh, hey, I should ask about this and see if there's any relation. And when you were explaining about the electrons and things being kind of like a circuit, there's this thing that frequently was said to me that I've been hearing, and I say it also whenever I speak to like clients or whenever I'm doing the videos about needing to reprogram kind of your mind and how you speak to yourself, or how you move and act and operate within the world. Like, as you were going through the ascension process, there's this whole kind of like deconditioning and reprogramming. But is that something that is like relatable in a neuroscience type of
Absolutely.
thing? Do you understand
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
trying to ask here?
I
This is one of
do.
those things.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
what am I
Yeah, yeah.
what am I asking?
So let me tell you. So
Okay,
this
yes,
one, I
please
know.
give me the details.
So that's what I know. So what you're alluding to is
Okay.
actually neuroplasticity. It's the capacity. Neuroplasticity, I know it's a hot topic in neuroscience, but anyway, I'll tell you what it is, right? Plasticity is the
Okay.
capacity of your brain to rewire itself based on experience. So
Okay.
ascension being an experience, I know it's a very simple term for ascension, but it is a experience, and we are experiencing it on a human level because we've never experienced it before. What's now happening is new neural pathways are being formed in our brain. So literally you're rewiring your brain as you're going through the process. And that's why,
Okay.
the old conditioning, so those old neural pathways that, you're so used to going through that are very habitual for you, whether it's who you know yourself to be in relationships or even like how you respond to conflicting situations. There's a way that you used to
Right.
be, but now with ascension, it's like, oh, well, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. That's
Yeah.
futile.
Yeah.
I'm going to try something else on because that would work. So this new
Yes.
way is in fact you rewiring your brain or your brain's rewiring itself. I think it can happen in both ways. I think there's the conscious process of it when you're like, hey, I'm done with that. And now I'm going to try this, which is you causing that yourself, that is you being active in that process versus, you undergo some massive experience in your life, like maybe a near death experience, and then it's like, whoa, okay, life isn't what I thought it was. So let me
Yeah.
rewire my brain, So
Right.
it's like you can either cause it yourself or it can be external. But either
Yes.
way, you were definitely reprogramming, rewiring, reshaping your brain. And what I mean by that is you're forming new neural pathways. Yeah.
Neural pathways. So
Yeah.
break down the neural pathways for me.
Yeah. So a neural pathway so I'll start with the basics. A neuron is the basic cell within the brain, a cell being a unit. Yes. So it's got a cellular body, and neurons also have these long projections, and that's how they pass on their messages. Yeah.
Okay.
And a neural pathway is I would say, a bunch of neurons that are connected to each other that it's like it really is a pathway. They form a certain pathway. Let's say we've got this big area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, and it's made up of a lot
Okay.
of
Yes.
neurons. And within
Yes.
those neurons, there's pathways that lead to, the center of our brain so that this part of the brain can then regulate things like the emotional brain, the amygdala. I don't know, you probably would have heard about the amygdala. A lot of people talk about it, but it's the emotional processing center of your brain. So a neural pathway would be something that starts in one area and then goes to impact another area. And as a result of that, you get a behavior. So, let's just stick to the basics. Conflict as a behavior is a neural pathway.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything is a neural pathway. So on a physical level, it's a bunch of neurons connected together that pass an electrical circuit over and over again. But how it manifests in reality is a behavior. And what I mean by
Okay.
behaviors is an action as well. Maybe it's how you respond to conflict. Maybe it's how you show affection. Maybe it's how you love your dog, whatever behavior you exhibit on a neural level, it's just that circuit firing off over and over and over again.
Got it. Got it. So also,
I know I say a lot, but
yes.
I hope that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes, it did. No, no, it did. Like I have the fundamentals, but like again, there's some things that what I'm doing essentially is trying to match what it is that I'm being shown to
Yeah.
they're just showing me things to ask and speak on, but I don't know what it is. So like I'm just trying to get clarity. I'm like, is this what this
Yeah.
is? Another thing recently that I just got was they're showing me this what is this back and forth talking about this. They want to ask about the connection between the right and left brain.
Yeah. The left and the right brain hemisphere. So that's
Yes,
right.
that.
That's great. I love this. I love that you have this ability. It's amazing.
Just stunned this for a second though.
I really am. It's like, I love this. But yeah, that's why I really want to come on your show is for this, right?
Yes.
Um, The two brain hemispheres are mirror images of each other, right? There's the left and the right hemisphere, and they're exactly the same, and they are connected through, I'm not going to go into too many details, but they're connected. And it's
Okay.
really important that they are connected, because if they're disconnected, that's where it's when you get altered behaviors, like maybe trauma responses, or you can't deal with those very well if the two brain hemispheres aren't connected as well as they, I'll say, should be. Yeah. But
Okay.
there's ways to actually reconnect them. And there's different techniques to do it. One that I've personally experienced is this thing called Psych A, right? So my naturopath literally at some point was like, oh, you keep getting these infections, but that's because your two brain hemispheres aren't connected to you. I'm like, I'm a neuroscientist. What the hell you want? Like, my brain's fine.
What?
Now, and
What?
she was like, no, she was like, no, try this, try. And so you do this visualization where you literally reconnect the two brain hemispheres. And I kid you not, it rid me of this infection that I kept getting. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, and
What's
that
it called again?
it's called Psych A, like psychology, but without the ology, Psych A. It's very cool. It's a cool practice, and my naturopath is a whiz in it. But you can study it. You can do like one of my besties is doing a whole course on it, and it's pretty amazing. And it is about reprogramming, the wiring of your brain. And it's pretty
Okay.
simple. It's through visualizations, through, affirmations, all of that. So that's one thing that I will say about the two brain hemispheres. But another thing I want to say is I want to bust a myth about the two brain hemispheres too. Because
Yes. I'm
there's
like, tell me all the things.
Yeah, because there's this big myth that, some people are right-brained or left-brained. And if you're right-brained, you're very creative. And if you're left-brained, you're very logical and like mathematical. That's not
Right.
true. Like, that is a big misunderstanding that is being propagated. So I want to debunk it. That ain't true. You're not left or right brain. You have both parts of your brain, and you're ultimately utilizing
Yes.
both parts of your brain all the time, to
All the
accomplish
time.
all types of tasks, whether it's like you're
Yeah.
calculating something or you're painting, you're using the whole thing. You're not just using, oh, let me selectively just use one part of my brain. No, you're not doing that. Yeah, it's funny, right?
Like, let me just turn this one off for the
I mean, I wish, gosh, I wish that could happen. And then, life be maybe a little bit easier, but that's not how it works.
right.
Your brain's working, the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. There is this thing also where frequently, I don't know if you've heard it before, where in the spiritual world they'll say like you're either like more, they say that the right side of the body is the masculine, like the masculine side, and the left side of the body is the feminine
Feminine.
side. So again, it's like constantly trying to relate the like, but you have both, at all times. You have both, but you can be more in your masculine energy or more in your feminine energy, but like the goal is to stay balanced in both,
That's
at
right.
like all times. But in
Yeah.
general, you still have both going at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a very good analogy in that sense that you literally recreated what I just said about the brain with respect to
Yep,
that, the masculine energy.
the
Yeah, exactly
spiritual.
the same thing. Yeah. Thank you. You can't say just, oh, today I'm in my masculine and I'm just going to use this one part. Like, okay. Right. I mean,
because because
I wish we had that control, but it's like, no, you don't.
just turn it off. That's true though. And I'm glad I felt that irkness come through with you. You're like, I just want to clear up this myth because this is not true. This is false.
It's not. And there's so many other ones, right? And I love debunking some of them on my socials, right? Things like you only use 10% of your brain. I'm like, no, you use your whole brain. You're actually using the whole thing. Like, it's not that it's always, different parts of it are active at different times, but you use the whole thing. You're not just using 10% of your brain. Like, that's I don't even know an organism that uses 10% of their brain. That would be like a I don't know, a non-viable thing, It's just it's bizarre.
Right.
It's really bizarre.
Right.
Or people talking about, oh, this is a really popular one actually. So I'll mention it before we go any further. People calling
Yes.
the limbic system the lizard brain. I'm like, there's
What is
not a
that?
lizard. So I mean, I've heard even like a very, well-established psychologist say that in a big kind of talk with a big audience. And I was like, I need to slap her.
But what
I'm
is
kidding. I
the
was just
limbic
like,
system?
do not say. So the lizard brain is referred to as a primal survival-based kind of part of the brain. But what it actually, and it used to be a thing back in the day, but it's so outdated. People used to call the emotional system, the limbic system, the lizard brain. So it's that part of your brain that deals with survival, the basic instincts. Like if you've got a threat
Right,
coming
right.
at you, that's the system that gets activated. And people used to say that, yeah, that's your lizard brain. But I'm like, dude, the only lizard brain there is out there isn't a lizard. Like the only thing that has a lizard brain is the lizard. It's not human beings. We don't have this lizard brain. We have what is called the limbic system, which helps us with those survival instincts, but it is the limbic
Right.
system. It's not a lizard brain. So there's
A
funny
lizard
things
brain,
like
like,
that.
that's what? Like the reptilian brain, like, it's for the
Yeah.
reptilian species? What does this
Well, that's
mean?
what that's what I'm saying. And it actually used to be called the lizard brain or the reptilian brain. But like, if you're bringing this into the spiritual community, that can mean so many things, right? Because then you're like, oh my gosh, there's a reptilian in me, but there really isn't.
You see my immediate literally, I was like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah. No. So we need to, it's important to debunk these things because people can run with them in all sorts of directions, right? So
Immediately.
yeah. So let's just end the era of the lizard reptilian brain. You don't have one unless you're a lizard or, you're a reptilian, which you're not. So I'm
Correct.
not. So
Correct.
that's it. Yeah. What we do have is a limbic system. It's our fight or flight. We do have that. Everybody has
Yeah,
it. And it's really, we need it ultimately because we need to survive. So there we go.
right.
Yeah. That's
Okay, so next question I have is, how does quantum physics and neuroscience tie together?
all right. Great. Quantum physics, metaphysics, and neuroscience. I mean, we're all in the realm of science in that sense. So that's how they're connected. And I think quantum physics deals with much smaller molecules and particles than neuroscience. That look, everything is made of obviously really, really small, tiny particles, right? Subatomic particles, even on a neural level. But neuroscience studies slighter bigger things, I would say. So we study chemicals and neural chemicals, things that, let's say, a popular one is serotonin, right? It's a chemical or a
Right,
molecule in your brain, so a tiny thing in your brain, that the abundance of which can cause a mood, right? A mood like happiness. So you got a lot of serotonin, all of a sudden you feel happy. Or dopamine. Dopamine is another molecule. If you've got a flood of dopamine, that molecule in your brain, you feel accomplished and rewarded, right? Or you feel like ecstatic. That it's called the
right.
pleasure neurotransmitter. But I think on a metaphysical level, you deal with much, much smaller things, but in the same way. So just as those
Okay.
small molecules like serotonin cause these, manifest themselves in behaviors such as happiness or ecstasy pleasure, I think that in metaphysics, much, much, much smaller particles cause everything in the world.
Right, right.
Yeah. I'll say I haven't explored the connection too much, but that's all I'll say for now. I think they're talking about the same things, just on different scales, if you will.
Different
Yeah.
levels. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
That's all
so
I know.
also segueing from that, I'm also being guided to ask about, how does neurodivergency play in with neuroscience and
Okay.
spirituality and spiritual gift?
Yeah, beautiful. Great question. So we're all neurodiverse in that every brain is different. Just like you have your fingerprint, no one else does. It's the same way you have your brain, and the way that it's wired, the way that it is so vastly different from anyone else. And in that sense, we're all neurodiverse. So when you're talking about, spiritual gifts and stuff, well, that's when that comes into play, because your brain's your brain and it's wired in a way that gives you these, amazing abilities, whereas someone else's is what, like, my brain's wired towards slightly different things, right?
Right.
I'll say, like, and then so that's neurodiversity, whereas neurodivergence is where you get, people starting to classify different brain types in different ways. Like, let's say ADHD as a diagnosis, right? Or autism, right? So that's in the realm of neurodivergence. But all that it
Right.
is also just, or even things like schizophrenia, right? Which in, I guess, the traditional medical model are looked at as diseases. On a
Right.
neuroscientific perspective, what it is just a different brain. It's just a different wired
Right.
brain. It functions differently,
Right.
and that's why you get the different behaviors. I think it takes it out of the stigma that's attached to those things, like, oh, I've got ADHD, or I've got autism, or maybe I've got a family history of schizophrenia, bipolar, whatever, right? These are just, I think, labels that come with a lot of meanings that human beings grant those things, but on a neuroscientific level, they're just different brains, they're just
Right.
different. And I think some of the complexities that come with it is that the world that is built or has been built up until now has only allowed for certain brain types. And whenever
That.
you have a different brain, um,
Yes.
that's like, oh, big no. Whereas now, especially in this ascension process, we're just like, well, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You just have a different brain and you behave differently. That's all that is.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that answer that one?
Yeah. And because again, like my entire life, I've been like, I think I was in maybe fourth or fifth grade when I got like labeled, oh, you have ADHD, and I had all the testing, and they were like, oh, you have a math deficit. So like learning math was difficult for me. And the thing, what is it? The thing where you like you get 21 and 12 mixed up.
Like dyslexia.
That. So like that was like a thing for me. But beyond that, frequently what I'm learning now, outside of the number thing, what I'm learning now is, again, a lot of the stuff that I was just, what was labeled as just being ADHD was, again, me just being overwhelmed with getting information, or kind of like doing this interview. They're like, oh, they're saying ask this, and they're showing me things, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. Do you know what I mean? But for a long time, it made me feel like something was just wrong with me. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people feel that way who, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And unfortunately so. And I think a lot of, I was just interviewed for a neurodiversity podcast the other day with a woman who has 3 kids that are, on the spectrum. She herself has been, diagnosed on the spectrum and ADHD and all that. And we were just talking about how on a brain level, firstly, it's because we're not growing up in a world that allows for that diversity in the first place. And then
Right.
secondly, you're now trying to fit in a world that doesn't allow for you to thrive in or even exist in. So no wonder you're then so chronically stressed all the time. She was telling me, my kid comes home from school and needs to go under the doona, they call it in Australia, but ultimately under your bed sheets for like 3 hours to
Yes.
just
No,
decompress.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a result of a brain that's chronically stressed for, chronic stress is when you're under stress for longer than 3 weeks. But let's face it,
Yes.
people are under
Yes.
chronic stress their whole lifetime. because we've been living in this condition that doesn't allow for anything other than what the limited spectrum of things that it does allow
Yes.
for. And I'm
Yes.
saying this, but I've studied within the traditional educational system for a very, very long time. So I guess I was able to thrive in that system until I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is so limiting.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that's just one example. And then yeah, I think it's just we're now learning a lot more about what's really happening and the limiting structure of the world as it has been up until now. Yeah.
Do you think there is a way for those of us with this kind of mindset, with different minds, to be able to more easily thrive and adapt? What's the hack or the tip for that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll take a look at it, or I'll bring neuroscience to this. So, social interaction is one of the best things that you can do for your brain and your well-being. I'll say your well-being on a neurological level. So, when you're interacting with other human beings, you are creating, you're not only creating new neural pathways, you're relating to people, but basically you're doing your brain really good when you interact with other people, whether you're verbally speaking to them or not even, or maybe you're telepathically speaking to them, or maybe you're sitting next to them. It doesn't have to be verbal is what I'm saying. Any kind of social interaction is just divine. It's the best kind of medicine for neurological well-being. So in that sense, I think once you can connect with people that you vibe with, whether you have the same gifts or whether you're on the same ascension journey, or, that are able to just sit there with you and get you for who you are, that's the best place. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the best place, the best thing to do. So yeah, in that sense, you can thrive. And that's why you see different people, different communities, right? Starting to thrive now. Like
Right.
I'm part of, yeah, like I'm part of all these communities that, up until now, I wouldn't even think of, but now I'm like
Right.
talking to a lot of people who are, experts in the clairvoyant realm or the psychic realm, or
Yeah.
like people with special abilities, and then people that are experts in like mind control like really things that I was like, I didn't think that would be possible up until now, but here we are.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you though? Like now connecting with, again, kind of like me, where I was like, sorry, I was like, they're showing me this and this is what, to talk about. How was that when you interact with people in this realm now? How does it feel in comparison to where you were at?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I think it's more, for me, it makes more sense. Like it's more real, if you will, because intuitively, I think this is more of a reality that's real than the other thing where you just like, the only thing in front of you is this physical table and that's all that exists. And if you could prove that it's there, even
Right.
better. Like, it's like, okay, but really? You know? Yeah, it just feels a lot better. It feels like a lot more expansive. I've got a curious mind as well, so I think it's definitely food for thought for me. And yeah, it's just feels great. Yeah, it feels
Good.
true as well. Like, it feels true. Like I'm really, I'm onto something that's true to me and
Yes.
to my soul and what I'm here to do, my purpose, versus just being a tool in someone else's toolbox.
Right. So another question. Can you confirm or speak on whether or not there is like an entire world beyond what the physical eyes can see? Because we just talked about what you just said you're like, instead of just looking at this physical table, like, oh, there's this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, of course, of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the the spectrum of what we can see as a human being is so limiting. Like, if you look at the visual
Hmm.
spectrum, what the human eye can see is so little. And on top of that, whatever you're looking at is actually only 10% raw data. 90% of it is generated by the brain based on past experience. So you're never actually
Right.
looking at the thing itself. You're getting 10% input, 20%, 90% is just filled in by the brain. And
Right.
that's how those like optical illusion things work. You look at a picture and it starts moving. That's because your brain's kind of filling in the rest. But that's how the brain works.
Yeah.
But aside
Yeah.
from that, which is fascinating in and of itself, we only see so limited. Like we don't see the infrared. We don't see any. We would just see so little. So of course, and then you speak to people like I had a reading with Rachel Vaughan, who was here in Australia, but she's a really gifted psychic, and she was like, "Oh, you've got a pink aura, you're pink." So I'm like, "You can see a pink aura around me." It's like, people see these things, so it's like, well, and if you train yourself enough, you'll start to see the etheric layers, all those other layers. And then funnily enough, I did a course with her and I was like, I can see the etheric layer around people too now. I'm like, okay. So I think once you train yourself and you can form those new neural pathways, you can see beyond the physical. That's for sure. I mean, I've tested it out and hey,
Yes.
I can do it. I think I can do it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, gosh, I mean, let's go back to what we were saying before. I think the human Ah, bodysuit, as amazing as it is, like it's just the capacity is just so limiting.
It is. I say that so frequently. I'm like, I'm like, it's so limiting.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's just what we see on a physical level is also part of also agreement. I would say this is more of a neurosciencey thing. Is if you and I agree that something is a chair, then that chair really is a chair. But if we called it
Right.
something else, and then the whole world called it something else, they called it a car, then we would say, oh, it's a car. So there's that,
Right.
then you're talking about collective consciousness, things like that. So there's
Things like
which is
that.
which is based all on agreement rather than even the physical reality. Yeah.
Right. Right. There was a sorry, I had it and then I'm like I had it and then I lost it. I was like I forgot what I was gonna speak on of that. But dang it, it was a good one too. I'm like, it was a great one. I don't
But
remember what it was. Right. I'm like, I don't remember what it was. That's gonna bother me now. Anyways, outside of that, what was the most fascinating discovery in your career?
yeah, well, let's have a look. Gosh. I mean, I discovered, it was really in my career as a neuroscientist, like in the field of neuroscience, whilst I was doing my PhD, I did discover the thing about social interaction. A lot of neuroscience deals with experimentation, and a lot of it is done on animals. And that's partly why I didn't want to do that anymore. I was like, there's only so much torture.
Right. Right.
Significantly, like they ultimately had no more anxiety when they were housed together. And then I was like, social interaction is a thing. And to me, that was
This
fascinating.
is a
That was,
thing. Yes.
yeah. So, and then there's obviously COVID, the social isolation happened during that time. And now the impacts of that all make sense to me because I saw it with my own eyes, in a social animal,
Right.
when you socially isolate them, they don't thrive versus when I
At all.
started with them. And then comes disease, anxiety, fear related behavior, all that kind of stuff. And then when put together, they were literally like anxiety gone. I was like, oh my gosh, these things are thriving. So that was,
Yes.
I think, that was the fascinating part of my, I would say PhD, but on a massive level, I keep reiterating it. Although I discovered it there and then in that kind of unfortunate experiment, the more studies I look at and the more experimentation I do with my own humanity, I think social interaction is just like, it's amazing. I mean, look, you're on a podcast, you're obviously social. So, you, So you know
It's
how it
funny
works.
that you say that. I'm an ambivert. So like I can be, but like I'm a Virgo. So like Virgo sun, I'm a hermit. Like after literally as soon as we get done with this, like I'm gonna go back in my room and put my blanket on and close my door and get my essential oils and be like, "Meh." Like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
but
No, I
but
feel
I
you. Yeah.
but I am, but that's a thing. I do feel when I had to go through the isolation phase, like for 16 years of my life, essentially, like I was in isolation. So, kind of coming out of that was both like exciting, but also really awkward and scary because again, it when you're alone for that amount of time, it's strange. But you saying that hindsight, I'm like, my health tanked during that time.
Yeah.
And again, it's like as you said, it makes sense now, again, in the hindsight of it. But as soon as I started, re-socializing more, even just online, because even still, like I wasn't really physically interacting with that many people, but still interacting online with people more frequently, I made it through a lot of the really difficult health things that I don't know if you know, but like I've been clinically dead 7 times. Like I've been resuscitated 7 times in my life. And
Wow.
so right.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
All
That
right.
would cause some
So
new neural pathways. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so each time though, like that's what kept me going was being able to interact with people online, you know, and
Mm.
that was so again, you saying that it was definitely also I remembered what it was that I was gonna say. Shoot,
Yeah. Go ahead.
eventually it was gonna come back because they showed it to me and I was like, oh, it was a big thing. But it was when you were speaking about how much the human eyes can actually see and perceive all the time.
Yeah.
When I was going through another like level of my ascension and some of my other gifts were being activated, again, hindsight, I know it now, but I didn't have like a me to tell me what was going on, what was
Yeah.
happening to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So as I was going through it, the first thing that I was experiencing, I was going to doctors, which was, I'll tell everybody, like, don't do that because it's a rat race. I mean, obviously, if you're having health issues, like bad health issues, you should probably get that checked out. But just know that if you come to the end of a line and you get no answers, like it could just be, it's just part of the ascension stuff. I got sent to a neuro-ophthalmologist because I started seeing things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weird to say it out loud now because, again, 16 years ago, if you said that out loud, like immediately they were ready to put you in the straitjacket.
Of course.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I do. I
So,
do.
but this is what was happening. Like e- I would be sitting in my room and I would like see stuff move across, like, like you can see my hand shadow in the back. Like it would be like you could see like, what I'm saying? You could
Yeah.
see
Things.
shadows walking by,
Yeah. Yeah.
or I could see, like orbs,
Yeah.
like floating through, and like all sorts of things were happening beyond that. Again, like I could see everyone that they had some like depression or something like really inherently negative going around. I could see literally kind of like the smog around them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what's happening and what is this stuff going on with my eyes? So long story short, got sent to this neuro-ophthalmologist and I had to do this thing where you looked into, you put your face up on the little goggle things and you looked into this thing and it was this blue cross that was in the middle of it. And you were supposed to only just see that one blue
Hey.
cross. And I saw like 20 or 30 of them. And I'm telling the guy, and he's like, no, he's like, there's only one. And I was like, man, I'm trying to tell you what I'm seeing here. Like, there's at least, I'm counting them as there's at least 20, and he was just baffled by it and then tried to gaslight me and tell me that's not what I was seeing. There's no way that you can see more than that. There's no way that
Yeah.
that's happening. You're seeing that. but it was like a real thing that was happening.
Yes, of course. Wow. And I think that's like the just insidious nature of the current condition and the medical world. And, I'm not, obviously I come from the medical world, or the medical scientific world, so I'm not going to discard and disgrace all of it, but come on, it's
No, right.
limiting. It's so limiting, it is limiting. And it's like, science, the basic principle of science is curiosity. So if the person's telling you
Right.
they're observing multiple things there, why don't you discover what that's all about rather than just saying,
Right.
no, you're not? Well, it's like, are you them? No, you're not. So shut up.
Is that a thing that's possible, like neuroscience wise? Is that like a thing that's possible for the eyes to be able to see outside
Yes.
of what the normal spectrum is?
Yes, yes. And again, as a neuroscientist, yeah, you can. If you've got the neural pathways for it, you will see things that quote unquote most people won't be able to see. And I think that's incredible, and that, we should actually tap into that and explore that and, enhance that rather than be like, oh no, that ain't happening. It's like, that's just dumb. That's just dumb. That's like
I,
non-science, Yeah.
right. How
Yeah.
does that
So I'm
happen
sorry
though?
I'm
Is it
sorry
is
that
it
happened to you. It's just nonsense really. But yeah, I wish we lived in a different world. But I think we're gonna live in a different world soon
we're
anyway.
we are. It's because we're shifting into the age of Aquarius thing, new world, new things being built and all of that, you know. So like I feel like we're getting there, but just one step at a time.
Yeah. Patience.
Patience. All right, Val, what else do you have to say? Any closing thoughts or statements? Anything that you have going on that you want to talk about?
Oh Lord. No, I'm just like, I'm really grateful to have had this conversation. It's been unlike any other, and I'm really just thrilled and hope that it makes a difference to lots and lots of people. And, I'm just kind of right here ascending with you in this way,
Yes. Yes.
in this, in my version of that, but,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really great to connect. And yeah, if I find out, here's the thing, as I keep exploring in this, right, in this new arena of spirituality and neuroscience and all these things, I might discover things. Then I'll come back to you and I'll say, hey, remember when you asked me
No, you're
that? Well,
definitely
here's what I discovered. And then we can talk again. But yeah, for now, just, it's been my privilege. And thank you so much for having me.
been a pleasure and a privilege and a super mind-blowing, mind-expanding honor to have you on here as well. And also, this is definitely not the last time that we're going to talk. We'll definitely be in frequent communication because I feel like you're my people.
Yeah, same, same. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm gonna hit the stop. Stay on.
All right, all right.